Good morning, Scotland. Good morning, social media land. I hope you are well. It is Thursday, the 12th of December, 2024. This is part 4 of my commentary regarding an unearthed old Radio 4 podcast from 2006. So far, we have learned not only civil servants were conspiring to hide Scotland's wealth from the Scots, but also to use devolution to hoodwink us into accepting limited autonomy. They even slowed down the process to reach our devolved parliament in order to prevent, for now, full-blown independence. Today, we shall hear directly from one of the civil servants who penned the memos as Mike Thompson tracks them down. Scotland in the 1970s had an unparalleled opportunity to redefine its future. The discovery of North Sea oil was a game changer, with the potential to turn Scotland into one of the most prosperous nations in Europe. But instead of empowering Scotland, Westminster ensured its wealth was used to prop up a struggling UK economy, keeping the Scottish people in the dark about their nation's true potential. Mike Thompson was curious to see if he could track down any of the civil servants who were creating these memos and deliberately going out of their way to suppress Scotland's right of self-determination and to hide this incredible natural wealth our nation has from us. He was not disappointed as he tracked down David Walker, who wrote the last set of memos that we heard in part 3 of this series.
Serious allegations, perhaps ones that Treasury official David Walker, if he's still around, might like to reply to. After ringing around a little, I discovered that Mr. Walker, now Sir David Walker, has just retired as chairman of Morgan Stanley Incorporated. I sent him a copy of his memo from back in the 1970s and asked if he'd like to comment further. He agreed, and so I headed for his offices in Canary Wharf.
Hello.
Sir David, pleased to meet you.
Very nice
Mike
to see you.
Thompson from Document.
Very good to see you. For me, it was an exclusively economic question. I had no interest, nor indeed proper role to play in relation to devolution. The government had given a commitment about its intention to go some way down that path. My concern, given my responsibilities for the, let's call it, external balance sheet of the United Kingdom, was to advise the government on the implications of moving very fast down that course, and lenders to the United Kingdom really had very little on which to place reliance other than the early prospect of oil coming out of the North Sea. If that hope, basis for confidence, had been diluted, then I think the ways in which, in the event, the government and the Bank of England were able, by the skin of our teeth, if I can put it like that, to finance their way through that extraordinarily difficult phase for our economy, would have been, I think, put to an even more severe test.
Britain would have been in real trouble.
Yes.
Now, one of our interviewees, a Professor Neil McCormick, who was a leading light in the SNP at the time, has seen your memo, and he describes it as an abuse of the role of a civil servant, and an abuse which shows a cynicism about the democratic rights of the electorate in Scotland and everywhere else as well. How do you respond to that?
I totally disagree with him. I think it's a misjudgment, and it would have been quite inadequate, a failure on my part, not to draw attention to the potential consequences if the process moved in a way which undermined confidence in Her Majesty's government on the part of very significant existing foreign creditors who held sterling and prospective future creditors who were being asked, like the Saudi Arabians, like the Iranians, to lend dollars to the United Kingdom in an hour of very acute and severe difficulty, of which the intensity, I think, is frequently forgotten in the present day and age.
David Walker's comments lay bare the priorities of Westminster during one of its most difficult periods. Scotland's oil wealth wasn't just a valuable resource, it was the cornerstone of the UK's financial survival. Walker's admission that foreign creditors relied almost entirely on the promise of Scottish oil underscores the extent to which Westminster saw Scotland not as an equal partner, but as a resource to be controlled. What is striking is Walker's refusal to acknowledge the impact that his actions had on Scotland's future. Dismissing Neil McCormick's critique, he argues that he was simply doing his job, prioritising the UK's external balance sheet. But this defence falls flat. His actions, along with those of other civil servants, play a direct role in suppressing Scotland's autonomy and denying Scots their democratic rights. This is the Union for you. It's utterly disgusting to think of the obvious gaslighting we've experienced since 2014, but now, examining our modern history going back to the 1970s, you can truly accept that nothing has changed. David Walker had more to say on this subject.
Whether or not there's agreement on my judgment and my advice at the time, I have absolutely no doubt that it was the responsibility of the person in the role that I had in overseas finance in the Treasury at the time to warn about the potential consequences of allowing a process which was fundamental constitutional change to the United Kingdom to get out of control.
Do you feel, looking back on it all, any sense of regret, any sense that you acted in a way that was inappropriate for a civil servant at this time?
Oh, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. I think the advice that I gave at the time in the event, I think, proved to be the right advice.
So you won't be offering any apologies to the people of Scotland?
None whatsoever.
Do you know what? David Walker's lack of regret is as revealing as it is infuriating. His assertion that his advice proved to be the right advice ignores the consequences for Scotland, the deliberate suppression of information, the stalling of devolution, and the control of Scottish resources all worked to sustain the UK at Scotland's expense. Walker's refusal to apologise reflects the entrenched mindset that Westminster needs always came first, regardless of the impact on Scotland. The deliberate suppression of Scotland's potential was not just the work of Westminster civil servants and senior English MPs, but also Scottish MPs played a complicit role in this betrayal, prioritising their political careers in the UK over their duty to the Scottish people. Their silence and inaction allowed Westminster to exploit Scotland's wealth, while their constituents were left in the dark and the opportunities stolen from them. The jaded mindset of the Anglo-British nationalist Scots who are accepting of this kind of betrayal, the subservient attitude to the needs of Westminster over your own country, baffles me. How can anyone in Scotland agree that English civil servants making decisions that suppress their neighbour, who are supposed to be in an equal partnership, is a good thing? Mike Thompson, at the time of making this podcast, took the time to contact one of Scotland's greatest sons, a staunch advocate for independence, Sean Connery, and they got his opinion on this.
What would Scots supporters of the nationalist campaign in the 1970s make of all this? More in hope than expectation, I decided to email the SNP's most famous supporter, the actor Sir Sean Connery. Within days, I had this call from America.
My point is that transparency is a joke. Here was genuine evidence of what I consider collusion by people who were not in the position to make that decision. You can do that with a dictatorship. You can do it with somebody that's got enough money to bung around or favours. But in a joke democracy, no, that's what it is. It's grossly unfair, and it was anti-Scottish nationalist, and it's a joke. It's the tail wagging the dog.
Now, people in Scotland have never actually voted, or a majority have never actually voted for independence. Do you think, if what is known now about the value of Scotland's oil wealth, if that had been known in the mid-1970s, do you think things could have been different?
There was no question there was a great movement, and it's in all the exchanges that they were terrified of it. Devolution, well, they're frightened it could have been a revolution, because the National Party would certainly have a referendum.
Who would have won that referendum?
Who would have won it? I think the Scottish nationalists.
And do you think independence would have been the result?
Most certainly.
As a Scotsman, how do you feel about this? Do you feel cheated?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, but the depth of it, the cynicism of it, is appalling, considering all the bullshit that goes out about Scotland gets too much money, whereas if they'd been made healthy partners sharing, it would have been a different ballgame. Could have gone forward in good faith.
Do you think there should be an apology?
More than an apology, there should be a whole admission. There should be a genuine inquiry, not like Hutton's nonsense, and should be exposed.
Sean Connery's words capture the frustration and betrayal felt by so many Scots. Transparency, he says, was a joke, and the deliberate suppression of Scotland's economic potential was nothing short of collusion. He reflects on how differently things might have turned out if Scots had known the truth back in the 1970s. The fear within Westminster was clear. Knowledge of Scotland's oil wealth could have sparked a referendum, and that referendum could have led to independence. Connery highlights the double standard at the heart of the Union. While Scots were told they received too much from Westminster, the reality was their resources were being siphoned off to stabilise the UK economy. His call for more than just an apology, demanding a full admission of guilt and a genuine inquiry, underscores the depth of the betrayal. This is the least we should accept. I would go as far as saying full reparations for what was taken from us. Our wealth was stolen from us, our future and the future of your kids and my kids manipulated into a sense of, you're too poor, Scotland. But they're still at it, aren't they? With their Scotland bad narrative, the fiscal deficit we allegedly have. Do our Anglo-British nationalist brothers and sisters that claim to be Scottish truly think we are too poor? Do they have no ambition other than licking the boots of Westminster lackeys and their leaders? I find this all very disappointing and hope that these 4 videos get shared far and wide and end up being watched by someone with influence that will use the facts within them to inspire our nation and lead us to liberty. According to Dennis Healy, the information is there for intelligent Scots to discover for themselves. Well, I discovered this 2006 podcast and I have the document numbers to request all the memos under the Freedom of Information Act. And I intend to get them and bring them to the attention of as many Scots as I possibly can. I mean, look at what's happening down the east coast of Scotland just now. They are building 4 massive cables to suck all that good renewable energy down to England. How can we accept that when we are paying the highest prices of our energy in Europe? They don't even hide their piracy of our wealth anymore. We are so conditioned to accept that we are shit at life that most of us don't even care, and that is no good. There's no going back on this. We cannot remain stuck in a coffee shop lifestyle complaining how crap things are while supping on a skinny latte and doing nothing. The evidence is undeniable. Scotland has been exploited, its wealth stolen, its future suppressed, and its people lied to. Westminster and its allies, both within and outside of Scotland, deliberately conspired to keep us powerless, to siphon off our resources while telling us we were dependent. This is not a relic of the past. It's a system that continues today. From oil wealth to renewable energy, Scotland's potential is controlled and diminished by a union that serves only itself. It's time to face the truth. We will always be exploited until we take control of our own destiny. We need to start doing something about this. We can start right now by sharing all 4 of these videos in your personal Facebook pages, your Instagram stories, your Twitters and your Blue Skies. Tag the SNP, Alapa, the Greens and the national newspaper in on them. This is the work that you have to do, your daily 15 minutes of digital activism. Come on, Scotland. If you think this union is the best we can be, you're so wrong. We are much better than what Westminster tells us we are. Tomorrow night we will be live at 11 o'clock on YouTube and on TikTok. We're going to just discuss the main points of here. We're going to play some of the voice actor stuff live. We'll probably play the Dennis Healy thing live as well, so people that have not watched the videos can hear them as well. I think it's important that we do this. I think it's important that we talk about this. And I really hope that I'll see some of you guys there tomorrow night. Listen, if it's too late at night for you, apologies. The only reason I do it late at night is for personal reasons. I have the room to myself to do this. I don't have the kids running around or anything like that. But you can watch the live back as soon as it's finished. It's available on YouTube for you to watch again. Okay? Listen, thanks for the support over these 4 videos. They've been very successful. I really appreciate it. We're building up a very, very good community within the YouTube app. And please keep doing it. Please keep sharing all the stuff that I'm doing here. It's not for ego for me. It's for the message and it's for the cause. Until tomorrow night, have a great Thursday.
I can't get no sleep.